So, no slouch.
And in Lauren Nolen's deck, we've got something similar to what you saw before with the last Aristocrats deck. He has 4 Orzhov Charm, which I'm not sure we had in the last list, and he's starting off with a Champion of the Parish. This is a pretty aggressive deck that has the ability to grind games out with Lingering Souls, Cartel Aristocrat, Falconwrath Aristocrat, and even has an Osbodot, the Ghost Council, the Orzhov Guild Leader.
A Tragic Slip takes care of Lauren's first creature, and he replaces it with a Champion of the Parish, which gets devoured. That's 2 Devour Flesh in Jason Terry's deck.
So that'll put Lauren up to 21 with no board right now. Pretty good place for Jason so far. 2 creatures answered with 2 removal spells. We'll see what Lauren can follow up with. And,
it looks like a Silverblade Paladin alternate art.
And on Jason's side, we're going to see a Liliana take out that Silverblade Paladin. So good start for Jason so far. Good start for both players, but Jason's had all the answers for the first 3 turns.
Now, Jason's Esper deck is definitely an Esper Planeswalkers style list. He has a grand total of 8 cards that are Planeswalkers. 4 different kinds. Tamiyo, Liliana, Sorin, and Jace.
And he actually has the 4-drop Jace, Architect of Thought, not the Jace Memory Adept that we've seen a bit more of so far today. So we see a Boros Reckoner, answered by a Detention Sphere, keeping up with the trend of Jason having answers for everything Lauren's played so far. Sphinx's Revelation discarded, and we couldn't see what Lauren discarded, but it was from the Liliana +1. And we'll see what he's got. It looks like Lauren may have a land in hand, although that just passes the turn. And Godless Shrine, I believe, drawn for Jason. So after missing his 4th land drop, he now hits that, has a Tamiyo and Azurius Charm, a Forbidden Alchemy. We may see him just, I think we'll probably see him +1. Yeah, +1 Liliana and pass the turn over.
Wow, gets rid of the Forbidden Alchemy.
It's an interesting choice. I would have thought he might want to use the Forbidden Alchemy to dig for another land. But I guess he wants that Azurius Charm to defend his Liliana, and feels comfortable enough that he'll draw a land for that Tamiyo eventually, which he does right there. New Art Watery Grave from Guild Pact, or not Guild Pact, Gate Crash. I was close.
He says, "Edict you, Lauren Nolen," and then follows up with a Tamiyo, and that Tamiyo is going to tap down one of Lauren Nolen's lands.
Looks like the Godless Shrine is getting tapped down, which may cut Lauren Nolen off from black, at least black that isn't produced by that Cavern of Souls. Preventing him from casting Orzhov Charm, Sorin, any kind of cards like that. But he does have another Godless Shrine, which he'll pay 2 life for, and a Falconwrath Aristocrat that will knock Tamiyo down to 1, which is good, but now the Tamiyo can lock that Aristocrat down, so we'll see how effective it ends up being. And I believe Jason drew the Jace Architect of Thought that we were talking about earlier, so about to potentially have a real army of Planeswalkers out here.
Yeah. Now, if Jason lays the Jace, well, we're going to see him go 1 step at a time. First, let's knock down that Aristocrat. I was going to say, if he lays the Jace, uses the Mini Factor Fiction ability, the -2, and gets a land he can use for his Azorius Charm, he can actually be in a lot of good shape. He does not choose to do that yet, though, but he does instead. Looks like the ability after he makes the discard happen. There's another Jace, a land, and a Lingering Souls.
Okay, another line of play, but he does clear out Lauren Nolen's hand and leave him with just a tapped Aristocrat that will not untap on his next turn. So we'll see what Lauren Nolen draws here. or we won't see what he draws. And it's a land and passing the turn. Passing the turn to your opponent with no pressure when your opponent has 3 planeswalkers, not a good place to be. We're going to see Lingering Souls get cast for a couple of what would normally probably be blockers that might go on the offensive here. Yeah, Jason Terry really in control of this game so far. Flashes back Lingering Souls, even more spirits, and we're going to see a bunch of Planeswalker activations now. +1 on Jace, +1 on Liliana, +1 on Tameo, and passes the turn.
Empty-handed, but in complete control of this game.
Yeah, and we see that he was happy to plus that Liliana, discarding his card even though he wasn't getting a card from Loren. It was a Lingering Souls which he can cast, but he's really just looking to tick up those Planeswalkers and put Loren out of this game pretty much.
I mean, I feel like Loren's only chance right now is to top deck a Zealous Conscripts, which he has 1 of in the main deck, at the exact right moment.
Yeah, and he would really have to use it in some way that would allow him to take out 1 or 2 of these, probably 2 of these Planeswalkers at least. That's going to require Jason Terry to go on the offensive with those spirits, which we haven't seen if he's going to choose to do that yet. So another mini Fact or Fiction, and I think that is a Sorin. And now we've got 4 Planeswalkers down, none of which are Planeswalker legend ruling each other. And an attack with 2, 3, 4 of those spirits. And that was actually, I believe Sorin made a +1/+0 emblem, because it has 1 counter on it. I think that attack was for 8. So.
Loren Nolen packs it up to the Fantastic 4 here. Whew. A pretty quick win for this Esper control deck. Esper control decks are not normally known for 7-minute wins.
No, definitely not. And it is always nice when you can get that quick win playing a control deck. You play a lot of long matches throughout the day, and any that you can get done quickly and take a little break is nice. And since his games do tend to go longer, this is also nice because he won't have to be as concerned about time on the clock and potentially a draw. So both players looking at their sideboards. Looks like Loren has Slaughter Games, Rest in Peace, which will probably not come in, only hits a couple things. The games may come in though. Jason Terry does have a pretty even, very even distribution of 2, 2, 2, and 2 on the Planeswalkers, but it could take out something like a Supreme Verdict, which there are 4 of. Yeah, we'll see if he chooses to bring that in. Loren has Gloom Surgeon, an interesting card that I believe is a 2/1 for 2.
2/1 for 2 that it does not take combat, or it prevents combat damage dealt to it, and you are in turn exiling the top of your library equal to the damage it would have taken.
Yep, so I don't see him bringing that one in. He does have an Osbodot though, another one that is really just good as something that's hard to deal with. And when does that card exile itself?
Obsidian, you are not required to, but you may exile it at the end of your own turn.
Okay, so it's immune to things like Detention Sphere, Supreme Verdict, that Jason has. So getting that on the table could be really huge for Loren. I could definitely see him bringing that in. He's got a Skurzdag High Priest to fight removal a bit, and there's a few things he might bring in.
Now, Jason Terry's deck, on the other hand, is basically incredibly well-set main deck for this matchup. Looking at his sideboard, he's got Negates, Dispels, Witchbane Orb, Sundering Growth, Purify the Grave, Rest in Peace, Blind Obedience, and Rock's Faithmender. The only cards that I think make any sense whatsoever would be Blind Obedience and Rock's Faithmender. And I think Blind Obedience is a card he might bring in order to fight against Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Because that can actually prevent that 4 damage from the haste attack, and then also be a way that he can gain life against a deck that can otherwise kind of grind his life total down. But the thing about it is, looking at this list, I don't know that there's any individual card that specifically should go away in order to try to make that happen. I mean, his main deck, practically every card is a card that is going to be solid against Loren Nolen.
Yeah, I could easily see him not sideboarding anything in this matchup. Yeah, I mean the Faith Mender is fine. In a certain sense, in the sense that Loren's going to be attacking him and trying to kill Jason, probably more than Jason's going to be trying to kill Loren, but it's really not the kind of card you want against Loren's deck. Loren's going to have a lot of threats, probably, and Jason's going to be looking to play sweepers that would, kill his own Rock's Faith Mender. So not a great option, and I don't really see Rest in Peace being one either, so we'll see if he chooses to board anything, but definitely possible that he won't.
It's just definitely one of those situations where you have so many weapons sometimes that it happens that there are occasions where you just keep the same 60.
Yep. So looks like both players have kept. Loren leads with a Godless Shrine, Jason with a Watery Grave, adds a Clifftop Retreat, and he did bring in...
the Gloom Surgeon.
Yeah, he brought that in, so...
Jason Terry checking it out. What's that card? Okay, that's cool. Jason Terry basically looking at that card like a generic 2/1. There's not much else that is for Loren, but that might be a card that he needs. It's just a little bit more beatdown.
It's possible that Loren boarded out his Orzhov Charms and boarded in that Gloom Surgeon just as a switch in 2-mana spells, one that's more aggressive. Not really feeling like any of the modes on Orzhov Charm are particularly good against what Jason Terry is doing. He's not going to get much mileage out of the removal, and if he does use it to return a 1-mana creature from the graveyard, well, it might as well have been a 2-mana creature in that Gloom Surgeon. So I could see that switch being made, especially with not a lot of cards that Loren wants to bring in.
Lingering Souls from Loren Nolen. Lingering Soul's a great not response, but we'll call it preemptive answer to Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, definitely. And he comes across with both of those. Does have access to black mana to flash it back if he chooses to. Looks like he has another Lingering Souls in hand, maybe even 2. And I think I saw a Sorin flash there for a second. And Reckoner comes down. And we do see that Jason Terry does have that Liliana in hand. Not great options for it right now, though. The sacrifice ability is just going to hit half of the Lingering Souls. And passes a turn, Loren Nolen draws. Might be a Silverblade Paladin, couldn't quite see there, but getting attacked for 5.
And we finally see the Charm do something super substantive, getting rid of a 3-power. It's the biggest thing it's hit so far. And this Devour looks like it's going to sit in his hand. And the flashback from Loren Nolen making it 4 1/1s now.
That's actually, I think, second Lingering Soul. So we've got 2 in the yard now and one more, I believe, in hand, which is just a ton of tokens. If Loren can get another mana, he can either flashback, well, if it's black, flashback 2 Lingering Souls. He's also, I believe, got a Sorin there, so...
I think that Jason Terry found a Lingering Souls and a land. I could be wrong, but I think that might mean that if he gets an untapped land, what he'll be able to do is lay a land and then flashback Lingering Souls of his own. Ooh, is that a Hallowed Fountain?
Yeah.
Okay, I bet you that is not a Lingering Souls in his yard then.
Yeah, it seems like he would have wanted to trade those tokens off if he could have. We're going to see Loren Nolen, see if he picked up a land. There's a Reckoner, a Lingering Souls, a Sorin, and another card in his hand.
Jason Terry with Supreme Verdict in hand. And Loren Nolen very patiently sits back.
Yeah, he knows that, these spirits are gonna take Jason down in 3 turns if Jason does tap low, which I think we're about to see. Yeah.
No, Jason Tamio He can draw 4 cards if he wants from this guy. Oh,
Yeah.
he uses it to hold down a land.
If he did choose to draw 4 cards, Loren could have, if he drew a land, played Sorin and made an emblem and really put Jason in a rough spot. So we're going to see that land lock down. And Nolen draws, I believe that was a Godless Shrine, so I think we're going to see an attack here.
Tameo goes down to 1.
Yeah, these Lingering Souls really doing good work against the Planeswalker of Jason, the one in play and the one in his hand that he was basically unable to cast because of Lingering Souls.
Both of these players are playing with real patience. Loren holding back his creature in hand in case of a Supreme Verdict. Jason not pulling the trigger and instead using it to hold back Loren's mana. This is a really interesting, I think, display of 2 players who are showing why they are at the #1 table in this almost 700-person tournament.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, Nolen holding back. Another land from Jason Terry.
Playing that land tapped. Lots of options for what he can do if Jason Terry taps low, which it seems like he will have to eventually, or fall to these Lingering Souls that are already in play. So we'll see what Jason Terry comes up with here. And 2 colorless, or 1 colorless, and a Supreme Verdict comes down, clearing out 4 souls. But as Adrian was saying, Loren's been holding a lot back. He's in a position where he can really redeploy pretty quickly. And I think we're going to see potentially another Lingering Souls from Loren. Yeah, decides to cast the one in his hand, put more fuel in his graveyard. And that threatens the Tameo. You're going to see a Devour Flesh take one of those out. And now Jason Terry's in a position where he has another Planeswalker in hand, just drew a Supreme Verdict, has this active Tameo. He's managed to clear out a lot of spirits. You know, definitely battled back nicely from this.
I mean, he looks to me to be completely safe right now.
Yep, and we do see Liliana come down, chooses to use that to get rid of the spirit, and continues to use Tameo to lock down a land. I like that play a lot. Nolen has a ton of cards and 3 Lingering Souls in his graveyard, so he can definitely use all of the mana that he has. And in this case, Jason Terry locking this land down is basically making Loren able to cast 1 less spell per turn.
Lingering Souls from Jason Terry. Now we see the repeat of what happened last game. Jason with a board established. Loren just choked out, really. I mean, it reminds me in so many ways of an MMA match. Jason kind of shifting this way and that, getting a hold, Loren shifting away, and then Jason doing a reversal and pinning Loren to the ground, so he's just locked right now.
Yeah, it was a little back and forth in those first couple turns. Looked good for Loren with those spirits, but yeah, Jason's locked him down pretty well now. We're going to see a flashback Lingering Souls and another flashback Lingering Souls. We know that Jason has another Supreme Verdict in hand, and when you can cast the sweeper effect with even 1 Planeswalker in play, it's good, and multiples is very good. He also looks to have drawn a Detention Sphere, which is another option. They basically have the same function at this point, because they would remove his spirits as well as his opponents, but as those are the only creatures in play, it's basically a Wrath. I think we're going to see one of those cast. And we'll see which one it is. Jason Terry switching between the Devour Flesh and the Sphere, although I think there's other options.
He uses the -2 ability, targeting himself, to draw 2 cards for those 2 tapped spirits, and I think we are going to see that Detention Sphere hit now.
Yeah, I would think that we will. 2, 3.
Oh, nope,
Okay.
He's going to go the other direction. Supreme Verdict instead.
Yeah, this leaves him with the Detention Sphere, which can handle both any follow-up creatures that Loren has, as well as any non-creature permanents Loren might choose to battle with
wow.
Sorin or something like that.
And he actually goes to discard it to the Liliana. And I think we might see a Blind Obedience hit play now.
Yep, it looks like we do.
And so those Blind Obedience did come in. And this means that he is safe from a hasty attack from an Aristocrat.
Yeah, definitely very, very relevant with these Planeswalkers in play. Planeswalkers, I guess I should say haste creatures, the natural enemy of Planeswalkers, and Blind Obedience does a great job at keeping those under control. So, Lauren Nolen with advantage as far as cards in hand go, but definitely pretty far behind on the board here. I think we see a hand of Falconwrath Aristocrat, Reckoner, the Sacred Foundry he just played, and a graveyard with a single Lingering Souls in it. So
Lauren Nolen takes 2 life from the Sacred Foundry, lays a Sorin, Lord of Innistrad.
Does have a Sorin and just discarded that Detention Sphere, so we'll see what kind of answers Jason Terry has for that. Looks like just 2 creature removal spells in hand, Devour Flesh and then also Supreme Verdict, if I'm seeing those right, and a Flashback Lingering Souls for a couple of spirits.
Now all of these creatures are theoretically tapped.
Yeah,
there we go.
From Jason Terry, he draws another Blind Obedience. So
Supreme Verdict also in hand.
Yeah,
he says, let's discard. I got mine.
This is interesting. He may have trouble with that Sorin.
Sorin could be a real problem.
Lauren was able to deploy a bunch of creatures very quickly here. It may force the Supreme Verdict out of Jason Terry, which, could leave him with not really a great answer to that Sorin, which is just going to continue to build an army if it's left unchecked.
And Jason Terry activates Liliana. He discards Blind Obedience number 2. Lauren discards Boros Reckoner. And Supreme Verdict comes out again, clearing the table once more.
And extorting for 1 off that Blind Obedience. But in this case, Terry has 2 Planeswalkers to Lauren's 1, but Lauren's Planeswalker can make attackers to take down Jason's. So we'll see how this goes. I think he has a Cartel and a Falconwrath Aristocrat in hand. And a Vampire comes into play tapped, and that looks like it might be a Plains as Lauren's last card. And on Jason's side, just waiting to see what else Lauren has. I think we might see this Aristocrat come down.
That's a Cartel Aristocrat, right?
I think he has both, actually, in hand. He at least has a Falconwrath. I think he also has a card. Yeah. Just flipped Cartel to the front, and we're going to see him play the big Aristocrat and keep the small one in hand.
As you said, Sorin ticking up. Now remember, Sorin's ultimate is crazy. You can basically destroy 3 creatures and or planeswalkers and then resurrect them on your side of the table.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered the ultimate actually, but if Jason Terry doesn't deal with that Sorin, is the ultimate 6 to activate?
Yes.
So if Jason Terry doesn't deal with that Sorin in a couple of turns, he may be the one facing down a bunch of Planeswalkers. And right now he just has a Devour Flesh in hand.
That discard a few turns ago of the Detention Sphere really showing Jason Terry just, he's got to be thinking back to it, frustrated and a little upset with himself.
Yeah, I thought he had actually used the Supreme Verdict instead of the Detention Sphere to keep that more versatile threat. And here we see a Sundering Growth, I think. He does have that in his sideboard, right?
He does.
So Sundering Growth, but no token to no token to populate with that.
Now he's activating the -2 ability on Tamiyo, targeting Lauren Nolen. Lauren can respond here. He's got Aristocrats. He can turn any one of these into a dead creature, thus making Jason Terry draw less cards. Right now, Jason's going to draw 3 cards.
Yeah, Loren can basically choose here how many cards he wants Jason to draw, anywhere between 3 and 0. Loren may basically decide that he feels he can beat Jason with the Sorin and doesn't want him to possibly draw an answer to that Sorin. So we're going to see 2 cards drawn, chooses to sacrifice that Cartel Aristocrat.
And between the Liliana and the Devour Flesh, neither of those creatures is going to survive this turn should Jason Terry want to.
Yeah, I think he drew 2 lands off of that Tameo -2.
And looks like we're going to see a Blind Obedience plus suck 1 life.
Yep, Devour Flesh drains for 1 using Blind Obedience. Loren gains a couple of life off of the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. And we're down to Sorin facing down to Liliana. And Loren Nolen draws. I didn't quite catch what he drew, but I imagine we're going to see Sorin do something this turn, at the very least.
And just off of camera is a very important Sorin Lord of Innistrad. It's, I believe, ticked up to 6 counters right now.
Yep, and he adds Falcon Wrath Aristocrat to go along with that. So a couple of really strong 4-drops. Something's happening.
We're seeing a Drown Yard happen.
Oh, milling, okay. Milling some cards. One of them appeared to be a Lingering Souls, which will add to Loren's army if he chooses to cast that next turn. Jason
Terry here.
Yeah, 2 lands and a Sundering Growth. This game really turned around by Sorin, and as we mentioned, Jason had that Detention Sphere, choosing to discard it and take a different path this game, and Loren had the Sorin to punish him for that decision. So we see a Hallowed Fountain play tapped. Jason, really with not many options, doesn't plus Liliana here. Loren now with a Sorin Lord of Innistrad that can activate its ultimate whenever he wants. Although in this case he would just be trading it for that Liliana, and I think he'd rather have the Sorin.
That's probably fair.
So probably figuring out whether he wants to make another token or produce an emblem. And life totals have just been fixed. 17 for Loren, 14 for Jason Terry. We're finding out where those creatures are going. Looks like one of them went to the Liliana at least. And we know that Jason doesn't have anything in hand in those 2 cards with Sundering Growth and a land, but Loren doesn't know that, so we're not sure how many creatures he chose to commit to taking out that Liliana, possibly playing around something. Adding another Vampire to the board using Sorin's +1, and a Skurzdag High Priest, which it has the Morbid ability, which it can only use if a creature's died this turn, but Loren can turn that on with his Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Jason Terry using from the graveyard a Forbidden Alchemy at the end of turn here, and Blind Obedience to gain 1 life, trying to muster some kind of resistance to the 2 Vampire tokens, a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat and the Skurzdag High Priest, and off of screen, the Sorin Lord of Innistrad. And that looks like a bunch of nothing. Oh, no, there is a Sorin. Jason Terry found a Sorin of his own.
So he's going to be able to Legend Rule, or Planeswalker Legend Rule, that Sorin, and he also drew a Sorin. So he has 2 Sorins now, both of which he can cast, although I'm not sure how. He is facing down quite a few creatures, so...
And Sorin, is he going to plan on Blind Obedience with the... does not look like it. Looks like he refrains from gaining the 1 there.
And I think we're going to see the other Sorin come down here and make a token. unless he wants to wait and see if he can clear those creatures out before. Yeah, so he's decided that he needs his Sorin to survive, and if he played it now, he would just be sacrificing it to that Aristocrat to gain some life. He's going to take 7 damage here.
Obsidian Ghost Council
comes down and deals another 2, gains Loren 2 life. That gets exiled, and it's looking very rough for Jason.
We see another activation of the Drown Yard. Lingering Souls. I don't know if that's going to do it. Jason Terry here on 2 life. What's he going to do? He can go Linger and then Extort, and then Linger and then Extort. Goes up to 3.
Yeah, he's going to take another couple of damage from this Obsidat when it comes back. He can get up to 4 blockers and up to 4 life.
One, two, 3, 4. Sorin and Extort.
So this is going to put him up to 4.
Make a lifelink guy.
And he will have 3 blockers, so...
I wonder if he's going to end up missing that 1 life that he could have gained last turn from Blind Obedience. And we see the untap. Obsidat comes into play and sucks 2 life away.
Oh, wow. It comes back into play tapped because of the Blind Obedience, so it's not going to count as one of the attackers for this turn. It does get haste when it comes back into play from its abilities, so...
If you're not familiar with Obsidat, Obsidat is a new card from Gatecrash. And I'm not actually sure if I'm saying Obsidat right, but it's Obsidat Ghost Council. And at the beginning of your end step, you may exile Obsidat. That's what Loren did. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. It gains haste. So that Blind Obedience does hold back Obsidat from coming in, but Loren is just choosing instead to use the Obsidat's ability to suck 2 life from Jason every turn.
Yep.
Jason Terry not out of the woods, but
specifically Jacob Dye and Adam Nolen. Please come to the silence area so that we can
lingering souls for Loren Nolen.
Jacob Dye, Adam Nolen, please come to silence.
So a couple of tokens into play tapped.
Now remember, Jason Terry has lingering souls of his own waiting in the wings.
So Loren Nolen here, considering how many creatures to attack with. By leaving back the High Priest and the 2 vampires, he can activate that High Priest to make a 5/5 demon if any creature dies. Looks like we're going to see a sacrifice there to give the Aristocrat indestructible, and he will be making a 5/5 demon, which will probably get blocked by a spirit. But we'll see how that goes.
And Loren chooses to exile his Obsidat Ghost Council.
So more damage coming in soon. It's going to force Jason Terry to extort with something.
Remember, Jason does have a lingering souls in his yard, but he is in trouble right now. Jason looking through the graveyard. Only 16 minutes remain. You remember, he finished game 1 in 7 minutes.
Yeah, so this game's going quite long.
And we have a Lingering Souls flashback plus a activation of Extort for 1 more life. Jason Terry going up to 3.
Yeah, and I think really one of the most threatening creatures on the board for Jason Terry, against Jason Terry, I should say, is this Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, because Lauren's got a lot of creatures out. You would think a sweeper would be effective, but the Aristocrat can become indestructible, and Jason Terry does not have any Terminus to get around that. The Obzedat is also important, but can't attack because of Blind Obedience, and is draining for 2 a turn, which also by Blind Obedience can be a little bit offset. So
now Jason Terry reduced, as long as Lauren remembered, and he did, Jason Terry reduced to 1 life.
Yeah, and this just seems like too many different avenues that Lauren Nolen is attacking on. The Obzedat continually draining flying creatures, all these tokens. It's going to be tough here. He does have 5 blockers though, so we'll see if Jason can make it through this turn.
Lauren Nolen attacks with 3 creatures in the air. On the other side of the table, Jason Terry has Blind Obedience, 2 vampires with lifelink, 3 1/1 tokens, and a Sorin. And Lauren Nolen has a Spirit which is dying, a 5/5 demon, and a 4/1 aristocrat. And
number 28, please come to the stage.
Lauren sacrifices his spirit to the Valkenrath aristocrat to give it indestructible, leaving Jason with a spirit that is alive and giving Lauren another 5/5 demon.
Yeah, so there's 2 creatures on the battlefield right now for Lauren, Obzedat and Valkenrath Aristocrat, that Jason really needs to take care of somehow. So we'll see if he can come up with an answer for either or both of those.
That looks like it.
Draws another land.
To the next, he
that's
concedes.
And they're going on to game 3.
Wow. Jason Terry now going to game 3 as the person that'll be on the play. Lauren Nolen trying to make a push to recover from that game 1 loss. It looked like Jason Terry was going to be in total control, and then a Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, hit the table for Lauren Nolen. He used that to leverage into just a ton of board presence, followed it up with a Falconwrath Aristocrat, and Jason Terry just kind of crumbled under the pressure there.
Yeah, and it was it's the case of a creature swarm kind of deck, even you might call it a token deck, battling through a couple of Supreme Verdicts. So this deck definitely seems like it's the real deal if it can hold up to that kind of resistance from a control deck and still manage to get through all that damage. So definitely lots of resources, using those Lingering Souls really well. As we talked about in the early turns, holding back with his offensive, and really forcing Jason Terry to make trades that might not be as good as they could be if Lauren had been more aggressive in the early games. So
I'm kind of wondering what Jason Terry was planning on using Sundering Growth against. What card he was fearful of.
He could. I'm not sure actually. I guess is Oblivion Ring potential out of Lauren's deck to take care of Planeswalkers?
It's a potential. I suppose you can use it against Oblivion Rings and Detention Sphere. Well, Oblivion Ring from a red-white-black deck.
Yeah, I mean it's a little iffy, I think, to board in an answer to an answer that Lauren might have or might board in. He may have just boarded in it as a catch-all. Well, not a catch-all, a catch some things that he might, potentially face. But we can see that Lauren has Rest in Peace, and that's it as far as things that that Sundering Growth can target. And I don't see Lauren Nolen bringing in Rest in Peace in this matchup. There are quite a few flashback cards, but it's really not what he wants to be doing. He wants to be adding pressure to the board, keeping the pressure up on Jason.
And Jason Terry is in no way a dedicated graveyard deck.
Yeah.
And if he does have a desire where it's reasonable to try to get rid of a Rest in Peace, he's got Detention Sphere if that becomes a thing that he needs to do.
Not to mention that Rest in Peace can do a lot of damage, even if it is removed. With its initial enter the battlefield triggers. So both players have drawn their opening hands. You see a few lands, a Sorin from Jason. Looks like probably an Azurius Charm, and Mulligan from Loren.
Loren down to 6 cards. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here in the booth with Ben Hayes. We are watching the 7th round of Swiss here for the Star City Games Open Series here, SCG Live in Cincinnati, Ohio. On the left, Lauren Nolen, the 10K champ, and on the right here is Jason Terry, a fairly regular player on the Pro Tour. He's a Michigan player. Both these players here trying to win the 7th round here to go 7-0. Only one of them can be undefeated after 7 rounds, though.
Yep, and in a long tournament like this, it's true of any tournament, but especially in a long tournament like this, staying undefeated and being able to draw in those last 2 rounds is really huge to get some rest before top 8. So both players really want this, really want to stay undefeated.
And Jason Terry here on the play, Lauren Nolen going for his mulligan hand, 6 cards. And he's keeping.
And we see a Hollowed Fountain from Jason, a Godless Shrine and a Doom Traveler from Lauren. Starting the pressure early, a little bit of pressure. And an Isolated Chapel.
Blind Obedience.
And that Blind Obedience from Game 2 that had a big effect, even though it wasn't quite enough.
It gained him a lot of life. And
Yeah.
it let him draw extra cards. It did a lot. I was really impressed by it, actually.
And effectively gained him a lot of life by having that Falconwrath Aristocrat come into play tapped, having that Obsidian come into play tapped. Really effective.
Now look at this. The Lingering Souls from Jason Terry, setting up a very unpleasant block potential from Lauren, should Jason even want to. He's got, what, a Azorius Charm in hand. What else?
Looks
see
like a Champion of the Pariah from Lauren. It's funny, a lot of our matches have been really back and forth, weird Boros Reckoner stuff, but this match really seems to be Lingering Souls heavy. Both players have it, and it's been really important. Jason Terry taking a quick game 1 with it, and then Lauren Nolen really using it to grind out game 2 and stay in a game where multiple sweeper effects were cast against him. So we see a Tragic Slip on that Champion, a couple of Doom Travelers, and more tokens getting added to the board with Lingering Souls. I believe Jason Terry missed his land drop also.
And Lauren coming in, but Jason Terry, I think, choosing not to block in these games. It looks like Jason is trying to be the beatdown here.
Yeah, and with Blind Obedience, keeping blockers from being a big thing, keeping those haste creatures back and draining life, it's not a bad choice for Jason Terry.
I wonder if he's going to make an emblem.
I think he will.
It's
And
an
he
emblem,
does.
in for 8.
Wow, so that puts Lauren Nolen down to 8, and one more swing and he's gone if he can't figure something out here.
And he has no way to put a blocker in play that can actually successfully block.
Yeah, anything he puts into play is going to come into play tapped, even the spirits off these Doom Travelers. So we'll see what he can come up with, but this is a pretty rough spot for Lauren Nolen here. Facing down 8 power of flyers on what I think is turn 5 here for Jason.
And I think that's it. I think that it's over.
Yep, we're going to see Souls.
And Jason's like, you're dead. No, tap those guys.
They're tapped.
There you go. And die. And that is it. Jason Terry takes it down in another quick 4 or 5. That was probably about 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's funny, the 2 games that the Esper Control deck won probably took a total of less than 15